Well, we'd love to get to know you a bit more and about your journey. And I just want to start by saying that I appreciate your leadership, not only as a business leader, but also you're a proud Jewish leader, proud Zionist, and we're really all grateful for that. So thank you. So your entrepreneurial story is really incredible. Can you tell us a bit about the inspiration at the very onset of creating Indigo?
I have to say, I do believe entrepreneurs are born as entrepreneurs. And whether one discovers that they're an entrepreneur early or later, in general, entrepreneurs just don't like to work by somebody else's rules. That's number one. And number two, when you get compelled by an idea or a problem, if it really gets at you, you can't let it go. Like, you just have to do it. So I will say to the entrepreneur that was up here, and I will get to your question, but I
That's okay.
just want to say, to the entrepreneur that was up here and said she'd experienced a failure, that is the life of an entrepreneur. You are so 100% right. And I think it's phenomenal to have somebody in this program who can share what the losses are as well as the wins, because that's just the nature of the game. So how did Indigo happen? I say that Indigo was part serendipity and part destiny. I spent the first 17 years of my career, after a couple of initial jobs, but my real career, I co-founded a consulting firm in the area of strategic change, and I was enormously compelled by the work that we were doing. And then at a certain point, one of my clients, who had a great rocket ship idea, recruited me to come and be the president of the company. And I was so dying to put into action the things we'd been talking to clients about, that I accepted the job. And I spent about 18 months at this company, where every single day was so exciting because we really were putting into action the strategy that we had partially developed with the founder entrepreneur. And then I woke up one morning and said, I actually don't care about what this company does. I love the excitement, and we had a rocket ship 18 or 20 months, and I became disenchanted because I didn't love the business that it was. I loved my consulting firm. I liked the idea of putting this idea into action, but I didn't love it. And so I, whose technical specialty was strategic change, I walked in one day and I said, I'm going to be out of here in a few weeks because this is just not working for me, with no idea, none of what I was going to do. And I remember leaving the office on a Friday feeling so good that I had this load off my shoulders, this situation where I liked the work, but not the business. I felt fantastic on Friday. On Monday, I was crying in my closet, literally. Like, what the hell had I done? I just left a job where I was president of a company that at that point had grown from about 150 million to about 600 million in 2 years, like a true rocket ship, and I had nothing to do. And when I say nothing, nothing. No pink message slips, that's what we used to have in those days. No pink message slip, nobody coming from my point of view, nothing to do, no meetings, anything. And I was like, whoa, I've just screwed up my life. And by the way, I don't know how many people in the audience are women, but I always find that when men make a mistake, it's a bit like playing football. They're tackled and they get up. When women make a mistake, our career is over. Does that resonate for anybody in this room? Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. Anyway, so that's what I thought anyway, that my career was over. And I was in this real funk, and a couple of months into a really deep funk, I got a call from a friend who sat on a board with me, American, who was a professor at Harvard, but also we sat on a board together, and he said, there's a company called Borders, which is a bookstore, and they want to come to Canada, but Canada has these really crazy rules where in order to come to Canada, they need a Canadian partner, and you are one of the two people that they would like to talk to. And they proposed something really simple, which is you make an investment of X, at the time it was $2 million, they guarantee the return, and as soon as the rules changed, they guaranteed what they would buy me out at. So I loved bookstores all my life. I had nothing to do, absolutely nothing. And so I met with them, and the long and short of that story, which is, we don't have all the time for it tonight, but the long and short was that the application from Borders Canada into government coincided with the vote in Quebec, where Quebec came literally within 2 points of being able to cede from Canada, of getting a decision to cede from Canada. And the government at the time decided that the way to wave the Canadian flag was to say borders can't come to Canada. That's what really happened. But by that time, I was so in love with the idea. This business was everything that I loved, that I said, I'm going to do it. And that's how it started.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing. So in the program, we very much embrace failures. You know, mistakes are just mistakes. It's meant to be overcome. And as we advocate that feedback is a gift, so we really are trying to focus on building more resilient entrepreneurs. But more resilient entrepreneurs come from resilient teams. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a bit about your teams and the way that you've constructed them over the years? And want to acknowledge that you've been one of the best places to work in the past as well. So
thank you.
Excited to hear your answer.
So yes, it is all about the quality of the teams. But it's not just what I learned over time. It's not just the technical ability or the competences. It's the shared values. A great team is a combination, I've learned, of both the real ability to do the work and shared values. In the absence of shared values, you can't do anything. Mm-hmm. You can't sustain the difficult moments, and even when there are good moments, you don't come at it in the same way, and there are fewer good moments. So I'm a huge believer that A's hire A's, and that you don't have to look, you have to look the same, sound alike, even come at problems in the same way, but you have to have a shared sense of values.
Reflecting on that, because without your core values, it's really difficult to overcome repeatedly. What are some, maybe just one example of a really difficult situation that you and your team faced and how those values shone through to get you over the hump? Okay,
so two different circumstances. When we were first starting, when Indigo was first starting, we had a competitor named Chapters that were big. And Chapters was big. Like, we were a startup company. They were already a couple $100 million company. And Chapters had a very smart chief executive, like someone that I have a lot of regard for to this day. But his background was military, and his point of view was never let a potential competitor get on the beach. And they did everything to stop us. Like, it was just unbelievable. And it took amazing commitment, not just from me, but from the team of people who I had brought from very good jobs to stick with that, to stick through that situation. So that was one time when the shared values. But very late in my career, when I should have known better, I actually had the opposite experience, which is I brought somebody in to the company who was very smart, unbelievable reputation, etc., and I did not penetrate enough on the values. And it was the single most costly decision of my entire business career. So something I'd always believed but almost took for granted that I was good at sourcing it, I know for sure if you don't have shared values. And so when I was in a situation with someone with whom there wasn't shared values, who had a critical role, it created a lot of damage and friction.
How does that weave into your hiring practices, and how do you remind or reinvigorate the team going back to values daily?
Daily. We have a very clear set of guiding principles. They're articulated in clear English. They do reflect my core values. I think that is one of the few things a CEO over time gets to influence. You know, in the end, as a company grows, lots of decisions are being made every day, and lots of things happen CEOs actually don't affect every single thing. But what you do get to do as a chief executive, or if you have a partner, your partner, is you get to establish the values and then align all your core systems with those values. And in particular, who you recruit, how they join up, so your whole staffing process, your performance and potential management process. In those two processes, and then the third, your reward system. So 3 core HR processes. Each of those processes have the ability to first to recruit and then to reinforce those core values. And then in almost every big decision you make, those core values reassert themselves. So Indigos are clearly written, easily shared. Anybody who wants them can have them.
Reflecting on the difficult year and a half that our community has had, how has that impacted your approach as a leader, a Canadian business leader?
That's an interesting question, because Indigo has been one of the companies most in the news and most attacked. So it's been an interesting path to walk, because on the one hand, I am a proud Jew and a very proud Zionist, and nothing could take away from me. And we'll say that, by the way, in any company. At the same time, I have to be thoughtful about how I approach this issue within Indigo to not politicize the environment and to ensure that everyone on our team feels safe and open, right? So the way it has manifested itself is I am clear to everybody in the company about what I believe in, and I've been very clear about how I and we as a company have experienced the attacks on us. I've identified the mistruths that have been perpetrated or have been expressed, and I've identified what the actual facts are, and I've allowed people to process them in the way that they want. And what has been incredible, we have 5,000 employees, almost 5,000 employees, most of whom are in our stores. And it has been rewarding beyond belief to see how people in the Indigo stores have stood fast in the face of a lot of very difficult attacks.
They're very courageous as they were. What advice would you have for someone who is either running a business, working within a business, or part of a union, who's having a very difficult time right now because their identity is being maligned, ostracized, even excluded?
You're saying in a business, running a business, or in a union, like a union organization? Based
on your experience engaging your employees and building that communication, what advice do you have for others?
Yeah, I think you this is my experience, okay? Everybody will have to pick their own path. First of all, I think being transparent about what you believe and how you are experiencing the current reality, and then creating an environment where people can actually talk about what they feel. And if I have a moment, I'll tell you a very interesting experience that I had at Indigo. I don't know if any of you remember, there was what was called a day of action that a group of pro-Palestinians led, where they encouraged everybody to boycott Indigo. Right? It was quite an incredible and well-planned, well-organized event. And that day, members of the Jewish community across Canada came out in support of Indigo, and we ended up beating our budget, notwithstanding the fact that there was boycotts all over the place and people outside our stores trying to make it difficult. And the next day, I sent a letter out. I write to people in the company every couple of weeks, and I sent a letter out the next day, and I said, I thanked everybody for all of their efforts during what I know was a difficult day. We had done a lot to provide extra security so people felt safe, but I thanked them all, and I expressed my appreciation for their support. And then I said, what is great is that Canadians, and it wasn't just people from the Jewish community, people came out to support Indigo. I expressed I shared with them that notwithstanding those few who wanted to be negatively impactful, to harm us, we actually beat our budget. And I got an email response from an employee who works in one of our stores saying he was extremely hurt by my letter, and that at a time when so many Palestinians are under such pressure, for me to be writing about sales was inappropriate. And your natural reaction could be to say, are you freaking kidding me? Like, we are trying to keep a business going here. But I realized that he had taken the time to write. So I wrote back, I emailed him back, and I said, look, it wasn't my intent to say that one thing didn't matter, right? But would you consider coming to talk to me, or might I meet you to talk to you, so that I can better understand your point of view and you can hear my point of view? And he said immediately he would love to. And I said, where would you like to meet? And we arranged a place. And he said to me that he appreciated my letter and he appreciated what we were doing, but that he was really sad for what was going on, and people in the store were sad for going on. And was there a better way for us to talk about this? And so I said, sure. Why don't we have a round table in the store at a time when we close, and so everybody can express their view. Right? And he was saying the same thing my grandkids are saying, which is, you might have a good point of view, Heather, but I feel bad for all those people who are dying in Gaza. So what I learned is, first of all, openness and transparency is important, and inviting dialogue. In most cases, good people of good intent, given the opportunity, can have a dialogue. And then there's the very small minority who aren't interested in dialogue. You can't change those people's minds, and it's a waste of energy. But most people, I think most people, under the right circumstances, if they feel truly that you are truly willing to listen and learn, there is a lot of opportunity.
Thank you for being open with us. Appreciate that very much. So we have a number of really incredible ally leaders here. Chris, Dean Zwick, Stephen, and many others. What advice do you have for our community in terms of having conversations like that to build friends and allies? Because it's a very real struggle with anti-Semitism skyrocketing. Many people are considering to leave. Many people have left, including friends and family of mine. Have
left where?
Canada.
To go where?
Israel, Texas, Florida. So when you see a lack of principled leadership, in my perspective, from the federal government, you see more principled government provincially, and I'll actually give you an example of your recommendation of having conversations. It's just a week and a half ago, a number of leaders in the community, grassroots community, organized an interfaith discussion with the mayor and with City Councilor Pasternak and a number of other leaders. And I think that you're absolutely right in that having these dialogues, it's mission critical, whether it is your neighbors or coworkers or employees or even your elected officials. So what advice do you have for our community in terms of advocating how we're feeling and where we're coming from? Because many of our parents and grandparents have had to leave the countries that they're from tragically, and Jews have played a very important role in building Toronto, Ontario, and Canada. And no one should have to feel that they need to leave in part because of rising anti-Semitism. So in your opinion, what advice do you have for all of us considering what we're facing?
Yeah, well, I think Canada is a pretty great country. And I think this current strain of anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism's been around for a long time. And it's just kind of reasserting itself here. But I think there's a lot to work with in Canada. I'm a proud Canadian also. I'm a proud Canadian. I believe that there is a lot we can do if we engage. and build allies to begin with where there is truly fertile ground, right? Where there's truly fertile ground. So I just think in the case of this young employee from Indigo who's just phenomenal, and he first came at me really hard, like really hard. I think if there are people of true goodwill, we look for those people, right? We're not going to start with the person that's been parachuted in, probably supported by someone in Qatar, and try and convince them. Not such a good idea. But I think if we can work with people with whom there is true openness, I am hugely optimistic if we are actively engaged. This is almost the first time in my life, and I'm old, this is almost the first time in my life that I need to be actively engaged in this issue. So I just think we just need to actively engage in it, not run away from Canada. Like, I respect that some people make that decision, sort of. Sort of.
I appreciate that very much. My final question for you is that we've supported 80 entrepreneurs, emerging tech founders in our program to date. We'll be up to 130 by the end of March. What advice do you have for all of them?
If you're following something you believe in with all of your heart, you will have difficulties and you will have moments, like maybe every hour you'll ask yourself, is this really going to work? Am I on the right track? Could it happen? I think one of the most inspiring stories of all is our recent Nobel laureate. Look at Jeff Hinton. Mm-hmm. Look how long he tried to convince people in the concepts of back propagation, like for decades, right? So, I mean, and I understand, and sometimes you do have to make the decision that, I'm just so sorry that I forget the name of the person who's your entrepreneur in residence.
Maria Schwartz.
For sure, sometimes the intelligent, wise decision is to say, you know what, this truly isn't going to work. But in most cases, as you know, and all the entrepreneurs in this room know, like 4 times a day, you're asking yourself, am I going to succeed? Am I not going to succeed? And I think I just read something recently that really struck me. You need the humility to know that where you can be wrong and the courage to know that you will succeed. And I think that's the thing. If you're deeply passionate about it, you have to keep at it.
Absolutely. And
it's
now
a resilience. You brilliantly talked about it. It is resilience. Oh, and one thing, 1 or 2 people in your corner who believe in you even more than you believe in yourself. That's always helpful, or as much as you believe in yourself.
Now we have a program that enables that support, so founders can make mistakes, get back in the ring, get back at bat.
Fabulous.
And thank you so much for being here with us this evening. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Fabulous. Enjoyed it so much.